Oh, I hope you're ready for this. This is a continuation from before the 4th of July. So we had a little break, but now we're back. Following up with In God We Trust, with becoming a more perfect union, which are familiar lines, but we want to keep moving in that direction. And we do want to look back at some things that led to where we are today, and then the work that's gone into that, and then move forward into what is yet to be done to become a more perfect union. So just to refresh your memory, the beginning, we were colonies. They're just a group of independent, different founding fathers for each one, different purposes as they were set up, as they began. And they were also, as this thing is kicking off, much more like a European country. And that's how they thought of themselves, as European countries. They were under British law, but they operated separately. They saw themselves as their own country. Virginians were really big on, this is my country. And people from Massachusetts, that's my country. So when this thing comes together, it is a big deal that this thing has accomplished what it has. But just in terms of thinking, okay, this is all separate. And even though when we look at a map, it looks like they're all together, they were not thinking that way. And because we are used to having 50 states that work somewhat together, not so much, not then. So, colonies of hope. They were coming in hopeful for different reasons. So we're going to couple of those just again to refresh your memory. There's hope for wealth. Hope for wealth. So if you go to Jamestown in 1607, the idea there was to send people to come to this country and make money. It was to invest. It was to get whatever they could off of whatever was here. Spain had done such a good job of getting gold from the native indigenous that were here that they thought, man, that's the way you get wealth. And you just go to this new place and you get it. And so they're looking at opportunities that, okay, what can we do? They did not bring a lot of people who were skilled at farming and developing the land, or tradespeople. A lot of people who got involved in this were more middle management kind of people, or people who lacked those skills, or they would get a royal commission, and they would come having no ability whatsoever because they always had servants who would take care of those things. So Jamestown 1607 is more about wealth. That's what they came for. Hope for worship. You know about these guys. Pilgrims 1620. When they came, they wanted to honor God. They wanted to be sure that whatever they started in this new land would build on what they already knew and experienced, and they wanted to do that without the restrictions that existed in Europe, primarily England. They had already been to Holland, and they tried to get things rolling over there, and it was working, but they realized they didn't have total freedom, so they decided to go back to England, get a boat, and took the Mayflower over and started another colony. But the hope was, one was wealth, the other was worship. And so that's a beginning from different perspectives on how this is all starting in the East Coast as it just is launching out. There's colonies unite, so we'll pick up on that part of this. The colonies are established. The Americans build productive farms, industries. They have British law, local supervision. As they're developing these things, and they began to bring in people who did have skills, who could do well here with farming, and they began to learn from the Native Americans how you could live here. And as they did that, they began to thrive. They began to build their own the farms and industries up, so things are starting to at least move in a more positive direction. They have, in the course of that, abuses, of course, because they have, they've got Native Americans they're taking land from. They listen to them some, but then they abuse them. They have Africans that they're bringing in to work these farms, so that not everybody, but there's some of that going on as well. So that we got there's a lot of differences in these colonies. They are all under British law, all of them. They are also all under local supervision. So they have their own governors. They have their own, like a Congress that meets. They have the ability to decide what they're going to do with the time or the issues that arise. They are still under the British law, and that's what they are using. So when you see the Salem witch trials, and you go, look at what these Americans did. Well, it was on American soil under British law. That was their law. That's how they did it. That was not under American law. That didn't exist. So we're talking late 1600s when all that's happening. We're not even there until July 4th, 1776, remember? It's a huge difference if you're going under British law. And that began to change, too, on how they were handling that. Because, you throw a witch in the water to see if she floats. It's important things like that. And if she doesn't, well, I guess, okay. But the local supervision is huge. So they're going to unite. But let's do colony's identity. Colony's identity. So with this, they're beginning to see themselves in a new light. So there's the awakened spiritual life that begins in the 1720s, 1730s. It begins to happen with Jonathan Edwards, George Whitefield. That begins to sweep across the colonies. People are realizing in a new way the importance of following Scripture, of walking with God, of connecting with Him, and then loving their neighbors. So and through that, there's a whole lot more mission going on, reaching out to the Native Americans. So here are these natives out there who, for a little while, they were reaching out. The Pilgrims were doing that, and then it sort of faded as they began to just take land. And now it's kind of come back, and now that's a mission. Let's reach people, all people. So it's the awakened spiritual life. That really does make a difference. If you've not seen or read The Great Awakening or something about The Great Awakening, but the movie that came out not too long ago is really good on putting pieces together on how that worked out. Defending against the French. So you've got British law. You have colonies that are independent. You have people building their own wealth with their farms, their skills and towns, wherever they are, and they're beginning to build this thing up. They want to expand to western Pennsylvania, Ohio Valley. They're looking to move in that direction as the colonies begin to grow. And the French also want to expand from the north, from Canada, so they're pushing back. And through that, you get a whole, the French and Indian War starts. So 1754, you've got a whole new pressure coming. They have a new leader, a young leader, who's from one of the colonies, Washington. That's another movie that just came out. The Young Washington one is really good. It talks about this. So he is now leading this battle, representing the British, against the French, to move the French out and to claim that land that they had previously claimed under the crown. So there is a little bit of a battle. And you've probably studied that when you went through high school U.S. history. What you probably didn't realize is that is a kicker to this whole thing that's about to explode. It brought the country together. The colonies began to unite because they had to fight. And so different colonies, different militias were pulling together to work and fight together against the French. That also meant, British regulars were coming in to fight this. It started the 7 Years' War in Europe. That gets costly for the British crown. They come and help the colonists and win. So now a big expanse of land now moves across Ohio, and we get close to the Great Lakes because of all what they won. But in England, the king's going, that cost me a lot of money. That was just not a good, let's just start taxing them. Remember, they were British. They operated under British law, but they were locally supervised. King wasn't doing much. The military wasn't doing much until the French and Indian War. It all changed, got very serious. They began to move into, they would put soldiers in people's homes and just say, you feed them, you take care of them, give them space. They had the freedom to just bust in your door if they decided to. They were the ones who were in control under that. The Stamp Act, they were charging for everything that you wanted to have printed or mailed, or the British government was now collecting all of that money off of those things. And remember the Tea Party? All related to this. They're going, who are you coming in here and charging us taxes? They hadn't paid taxes. There were no taxes. You go, well, that's a huge deal. Did you know in the United States we didn't have income tax till 1913? You go, that didn't exist here either. It's like, how come people didn't push back a little on that one? But anyway, here we've got some pushback, and they're going, well, who are you to come tell us we need to pay this bill? We didn't ask you to come. We didn't. They were locally, I mean, they appreciated it, but they were also just taking care of themselves up to that point. Now the royal governors start coming in, and they have troops, and that changes everything. Now the colonies are going, well, I don't know. I don't like these guys. So they're talking more and more. We have the first Continental Congress. How do you come up with that? I mean, they had to come up with a name, Continental Congress, for being in this area. How come they weren't the 13 Colony Congress? Nope. Continental Congress, by golly. This is us, that's you. Stay over there. Becomes a big deal. So from 1754, and by the way, that was because of Washington's troops and the first shots fired. That's how we got into the French and Indian War and the 7 Years' War. It was all under Washington's command. You go, okay, we got something rolling here, and it's not long until this thing starts getting pretty serious. So the separation from Britain comes as a result of fighting against the taxes, the intrusion by the royals, and the appointments of governors and the military, all of that pressure, and the colonies are going, well, let's push back. They weren't doing that the whole time. So it was after the French and Indian War that happened. So 1754 to 1776, this thing is building. So that's why this is a big deal. As it begins to grow and impacts people in a way that they're looking for freedom. They are looking for a new way to do government. They don't want to have it 3,000 miles away telling them what to do. And they wanted to change what they look like because they were used to governing themselves in a very American way. And they knew that they could do it because they've been doing it up until Britain decided to step in and get in the way. So they're going back to something they'd already experienced. By the time we get to 1776, we have a whole new thing unfolding, and we have the Congress, Continental Congress, getting together and saying, let's put together an army, and they choose Washington to lead that. They choose leaders to represent them. All of them could have been hung from a tree by Britain at any time, and they have decided we need to step out in a new direction. We need to separate from Britain. So we have the Declaration of Independence. Let's see what that's like.
1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such forms as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
With the Declaration of Independence, things start getting really serious, but they worked on that to get the wording just so. And you may not know, but there was a huge section they left out that was about abolishing slavery when it was announced. And the cause, it was one of their grievances against the king, that he was the one who had built that business. And they said, it's your fault that that's going on. But in order to get the colonies to unite, they had to drop it because there were certain colonies that wanted slavery and they would not sign on. So in order to be strong enough to take on Britain, they dropped it, which is a bummer. They also later had decided that they would address it again after they came up with the Constitution in 1809. That's way before 1861, 1809, and it still didn't get resolved. So there was a lot of stuff that needed to be worked on. But it was there at one time. Somebody was thinking about it, which is pretty cool. So war inside and out. This is, the Americans are now having to decide, what are we going to do with this? And there are people, because we talked about the spiritual side, in these state constitutions, like the Constitution of Massachusetts, to become a citizen, to serve in the government in Massachusetts, it required that you are a Christian and that you are participating in the things of your church-ish. And that was true for many of them. And in their constitution, it's very clear that this is a Christian, coming from a Christian perspective. So by the time they put these united statements together, like we just saw in the Declaration, that's not just general information. They are coming from a very Christian base when they make those statements. And they're familiar with Scripture. Most of everything that is written in those early days and what they learned about government, a lot of it came from Montesquieu, from Black, from his laws. There's a lot that they're pulling together from other places, but those are only a small percentage. The greatest percentage of everything that they quote and the themes and principles that they gathered came from the Bible. So it's that was the thing that they're familiar with. So war inside and out. The Revolutionary War was not welcomed by American colonists loyal to Britain. They would claim Romans 13, 1 through 7, let every person be subject to the governing authorities. So we can't rebel against Britain. That's the governing authority. So they're using Scripture to say we're going to stay loyal. So those are the loyalists. And then there are the American patriots. And the American patriots regarded the king as Pharaoh. And the people oppressed, that they felt like they were oppressed and they needed freedom. So they're coming from a whole different direction. And they used Acts chapter 5, verse 29, for their defense, saying we must obey God rather than men. So they came from a different perspective, saying this is the time where we just call it. This is it. No more listening to the king or parliament or all the things that they have imposed on us. So they're coming from a different direction. And those two groups are fighting it out, as well as the war with Britain. And this thing's going on back and forth. The movie The Patriot sort of picks that up good at the beginning when they're having a discussion. It's like a big gathering in the room in South Carolina deciding whether we should go to war. I don't know if you remember that part of the movie, but they're discussing that, and it goes back and forth, and you can tell that there are loyalists, and then there are the patriots, and that's a good movie too. Okay. Freedom in the birth of government by the governed. Freedom in the birth of government by the governed. So for freedom, Christ has set us free. Galatians 5:1 applied to civil government. So Christ has set us free, and we are supposed to be responsible in our freedom. And so how can we do that? How can we have civil government take care of our towns, our colonies, the area that we live in, and do that well? Christ has set us free. So they are still coming from a very spiritual perspective on these things. Built along with that, personal responsibility, ingenuity, integrity, and hard work are essential. They're just seeing that, okay, we're going to have this government. We need to have people who are going to take this thing and run with it, take care of themselves, and then find ways to help one another. So hard work is going to be part of it. It becomes a huge aspect. The idea in Europe was if you were part of royalty of any level, you didn't have to work. The worst thing you'd look down on if you do manual labor. So that was like the opposite of what the thinking was in America, where it was like, let's work. Let's put our efforts together. Let's learn some skills. Let's find out how we can do this better. Let's invent things. You go, wow, that paid off. Communities are built by people coming together. The country is built by those communities. So as those communities are forming, they're working hard, they're inventing, they're looking for ways to better themselves and the people around them. So it's really different than Europe. It's breaking away. Not everything took off evenly. I mentioned trying to get rid of slavery. All men are created equal. It said that right there in the Declaration. And it was followed through by a huge section that said, let's get rid of slavery because we believe that. And Native Americans are okay. That was nice. Anyway, throw all of that out because there were groups that didn't want that. So it took all the way till the 1860s, and we have a war for equality. And the war for equality, it's just getting to places with a group of people. It's just hard and slow. People don't change easily, don't change their minds, don't learn. God, how many times we've got to go over this lesson, and yet here we are, by the time this breaks out. So keeping in mind the hard work, the determination, and people still spreading to the West as this is unfolding, as the country is unfolding, there's a commitment to the idea of freedom. And then there's another group that says we're still committed to wealth. We're still committed to making money without having to do the work ourselves. So remember, those two things were happening in the colonies early on. Let's hear from Lincoln's Civil War.
It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us. That from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Words coming from President Lincoln. There was a whole new way of thinking as he came into that time, middle of the 1800s. So, application of humanity as we get into that time, and then in the years that follow, we begin to see things that are making this a better country, a better place to live. So slavery ends, and sadly, it only lasts a little while. Slavery did end, but the feelings did not. So there are laws that were imposed to limit the ability of African Americans to enjoy places of work, buy property, sometimes vote. I mean, all of those things. The 14th Amendment made it possible to be free. And then voting becomes a part of that. Right after the Civil War, we have African Americans in Congress. I mean, this thing is starting. But bam, it goes backwards quick. And so we get Jim Crow laws and all kinds of things that started. But it did end. That's a positive. It took till the 60s till we changed it again. But that wasn't all. So we had other things that were going on. During those years, or for centuries, workers were expected to show up and do like a 12-hour day. They started getting Sundays, so that was cool. There's a thing called Sunday school. You may have heard of it. Sunday school started in the late 1700s in England as a result of the kids who are also working, because there are no child labor laws. They're working 12 hours a day too. And so where do they go to school? When do they go to school? You can't even be homeschooled. You're not home long enough. You just try to get home, find some food, fall asleep, go back to work. So Sunday school was an invention to teach kids to read, write, do math. You got some Jesus in there, but it wasn't primarily a church thing. It wasn't churches, but it wasn't primarily a church thing. It was basic education, Sunday school. The hours that are put in were just expected, and to work. If you were ranching, you're getting $30 a month in the 1800s to work pretty much 24/7. A little bit off, if you trade off with somebody who's if you're watching the herd at night, you're not sleeping. The other guys are sleeping. You're trading off. $30 a month. Oh, man, that's just big money these guys are making. Workers who worked in mines were expected to show up. They didn't get sick leave. If they didn't show up for work, there wasn't a day off. There wasn't holiday pay. None of those things existed. They were just expected to work for a minimum amount of money. They began to revolt. And through that, there were all kinds of battles. Guns were fired. Things happened to change that. So we have slavery ended, then workers valued. So after we get to the end of the 1800s, we're getting changes in the laws that freed things up. By the early 1900s, we come up with this thing called an 8-hour workday. Anybody grateful for that one? 8-hour workday. Child labor laws said you can't just make the kid get in there and work constantly and then pay them nothing, and they have to go to school. All of those things started during that time. That was part of the freedom and seeing some value in people. Maybe you thought it was always true that women were in charge of the country, but they couldn't even vote. Couldn't even vote. I mean, that was a big thing that just, they're out there, these women are marching for the right to just vote, to have a say in the government. Isn't that what we did with Britain? To say we have nobody representing us, can we have a vote? That started a war. Well, women got the vote, so you guys just remember you get to do that now. It's really cool. Native Americans get to vote. So the 14th Amendment, 1865, made it possible for African Americans to be citizens and to vote. Men can vote. Native Americans, just recently, they just passed this thing about the Supreme Court said, if you're born in the boundaries of this country, do you see that? You are now an American citizen. I mean, they've been saying that for a while, but that just got reinforced. If you're born within those boundaries, you are an American citizen. Doesn't matter where you came from, what you did. Where were Native Americans from? Just throw that out there. Where could they have been from? Oh, they're from here. Guess where they were born? Here. Guess who wasn't allowed to vote? Native Americans till 1924. And it wasn't completed through the states till 1967. You go, no, that's just been automatic. They're born here. Did not work that way. We're getting better. Remember, we're working towards a more perfect union. But we have made some really grievous errors along the way. Getting better. So, we got some votes, and Native Americans can vote. Women can vote. We're moving this thing in the right direction. Race and gender restrictions are lifted. So, doesn't matter what your race is or what your gender is, you can have a bank account. That wasn't a thing till the 60s, too. You can have a bank account. A woman doesn't have to do it off of her husband. That's a thing till the 60s. I mean, we're just far enough removed, we think, well, it's just always been like it is now. It's taken a while to get here. And you just think, how could that even be possible that people thought the way that they were thinking, but it was there. Still, the idea is that we are all created equal, and we need to move in that direction. So it's getting better, but it's taken a while. You see how long this thing's taken? But if you compare it to the rest of the world, it's taken them thousands of years. So we're done. 250 years, we've done better than a lot of them. Opportunities increase. Opportunities to build wealth, to build houses, to live where you want to live, to go to the school you want to go to. Opportunities are lifted. Doesn't mean everything is hunky-dory, but it's certainly better and gotten better over the years. And at least the laws are moving in the right direction, and if people agree with it, we're getting there. So back to a little Christian perspective on this. So God and grit. So we go back and look at this. What if we are dealing with the world in which we live, the people around us, the communities we live in, the places we work, the politics that are unfolding, all those kind of things? How do we handle that? What do we do? And do we have grit enough to jump in there and do the right thing? God's way, not just what we think is right, but God's way. So God and grit. So Philippians 2:14 and 15 says this: do everything without complaining and arguing. You ever looked at Facebook or any social media? Do everything without complaining and arguing so that no one can criticize you. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people. That is a call to everyone who calls Jesus Christ their Lord. Everyone. So do everything without complaining and arguing. Wow, that's a big shift. And live in such a way that it's a light shining in the workplace. It's a light shining at school. It's a light shining in the community. It's a light shining in your own home. Being a light in a world full of crooked and perverse people. The scriptures aren't saying, well, everybody's fine, everybody's nice, everybody treats you right, and everything's just going to work out just so. No, it's really clear. That's not the world. It is crooked. It's full of crooked and perverse people. So stop complaining. That's the reality. Your job is not to complain, it's to shine. To shine. Not moonshine. Judy. Not that one. Shine like bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people. He goes on in 1 Timothy, I urge you, first of all, to pray for all people. All people. Ask God to help them. Intercede on their behalf. Give thanks for them. Pray this way for kings and all who are in authority so that we can live peaceful and quiet lives marked by godliness and dignity. He's writing, the Apostle Paul is writing to Timothy at the time that the Caesars of Rome are a little abusive. And even though they control massive amounts of land and countries, we wouldn't consider it the best. And yet, he's saying, this is what I want you to do. I want you to pray for them. Give thanks that this thing is working. It's keeping some degree of peace so that we can function. Intercede on their behalf. Pray for them and all those in authority. You go, well, I don't agree with the president of the United States now, and in the next 4 years you get a different one, and I don't agree with that one, or I didn't agree with the one 8 years ago. I don't care. Ask God to help them. Intercede on their behalf. That's what you do. Pray for them. If you don't pray for them, what do you think would happen? Just turn them loose. Let them go with their own feelings. If they're coming from a crooked and perverse background and they're going to live that way, you want them just to be free to do that? Or do you want to pray? Because your complaining does nothing, right? They've never heard your complaint. You don't talk to them over dinner. You're just making noise, dark noise, making yourself feel bad, and does no good whatsoever. But if you pray, intercede on their behalf, you're actually helping them, but you're helping the community, you're helping the country, and because of the place that the U.S. has in the world, you're helping the world. But if you prefer to complain, you can do that. I'm just thinking when you stand before Jesus, you don't want to talk to him about that. Pray. Pray for them. All of them. Whoever it is. If they got guts enough to run for this thing, it's a stupid job. Whoever wants to run for that job and go through what they got to go through, give thanks for them. Somebody's got to hold it together, even if you don't agree. But the complaining, unless you got a really good idea and you know how to run a country of 300 million people, maybe pray for them. Just pray for them. The doer, not the complainer. The doer, not the complainer. Little something from Teddy.
The poorest way to face life is to face it with a sneer.
There are many men who feel a kind of twisted pride and cynicism. There are many who confine themselves to criticism of the way others do what they themselves dare not even attempt. There is no more unhealthy being, no man less worthy of respect than he who either really holds or feigns to hold an attitude of sneering disbelief toward all that is great and lofty, whether in achievement or in that noble effort which, even if it fails, comes to second achievement. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Teddy Roosevelt was quite a man in the arena. Not everybody liked him, but he certainly got some things done. And I think he reminds us, it's not the complaining, it's not the grumbling, as Scripture is clearly telling us. Get in the arena. Get in the fight. Pray. Do something about something. Be part of it. Part of the answer. Misconceptions about America. This is moving up to our more current times. They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. That's an important little statement. Never forget how you made them feel. So, there's been this thing going on for a while, and people from the nations have come to America as it's hosting the World Cup. So we've got a lot of people here from Europe, and they have experienced some things. So what they've heard said about America is you need to really watch out for this place before you come. Just know how bad this is, how badly you'll be treated, all those things. They may never forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Let's see what World Cup visitors say about America.
I bloody love driving in America. It's such a pleasure. It's such an absolute pleasure. We've had to change our car purely because we needed to, the old car had a service, but we've got this Jeep Wagoneer. It is massive. It is huge. The air conditioning is amazing. The screen's amazing. I'm even getting cold air blowing up my bottom. I love being in America. I love American cars. I love American roads, and we are having the best time of our lives.
I got a question real quick. The cowboy hat, did you get that here, or you guys got cowboys back in Sweden?
No, from Buc-ee's, So go Buc-ee's, great place. I love the beef jerky. We love the cowboy style. You're great.
Hey, talk about the energy, man. You guys showed out, man. There's a lot of people here.
Of course, it's the World Cup. You talk about Super Bowl here in America. You have to understand, this is the biggest sport and the biggest event in the world.
It's kitchen. In the kitchen, why? Tell him what?
This thing is lovely.
Is it?
Stunning.
Keep eating them.
Americans, they say, I'm proud to be an American. For me, I'm proud to be in America. Regarde-moi ça. Look at this. Oh. No less than 20 people have stopped and said hi. I do not understand this hi. Hi, bonjour, hi. We don't have any guns in France, but if you did that in France, you would get shot.
I have to say this about the World Cup. America has absolutely smashed it. Before this tournament, you had people online saying it's going to be a terrible World Cup. America doesn't like football. Nobody's going to travel. We're not going to feel welcomed. And it's been quite the opposite. We've got fans from all corners of the globes. We've got packed world-class stadiums, by the way. Friendly people. Everybody you meet is just stopping you and talking about football and your experiences. I think we can all agree that America has done an absolutely fantastic job of hosting this World Cup so far. Genuinely feel a lot of people's opinions on America will now change after this World Cup.
Whoa. There you go. We've come a long way through the colonies being founded and fighting things through and coming to the place where we are today. God is at work. He has not stopped. He's still using opportunities like the World Cup to reach people. A lot of groups have shared the gospel with people coming in, and it's just been amazing with them as well. And with all the complaining and all the fighting, the media and all the things that are going on, and you go, well, you know, people from outside are seeing this country a lot different than those who are posting who are inside. Maybe because we need to stop and look and give thanks for what God has done in getting us to 250 years. So, God bless America. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above.